Welcome back. The summit is already off to a great start. Now, before we move on to our next keynote, I would like to briefly tell you about some organizational changes that we have undergone this year. In January of 2020, after 6 months of legal review and board consult, Georgia Bio underwent a merger with a sister organization, the Georgia Global Health Alliance, both of which are now divisions of the new Center for Global Health Innovation. Additionally, Georgia Bio has restructured our management board. This was done for 3 core reasons: to increase impact and efficiency, to better manage growth and risk, and 3, to enhance diversity and equity. This is an exciting time for our ecosystem, and the organization underwent these changes to prepare itself to better embrace the evolving community interest while working towards stronger sustainability. I'd like to thank Patty Fritz of UCB, the Georgia Bio chair, who is in her 3rd and final year for her leadership in this role, and Lee Heron at GRA for their encouragement and guidance during this process. Now I would like to invite Dr. Russell Medford, chair of the Center for Global Health Innovation, founder and CEO of Keynote, to make a special announcement on behalf of the CGHI and our newest division, the Global Health Crisis Coordination Center. Russ?
Thank you, Maria. As you know, my name is Russell Medford, and I'm the chairman and CEO of Keynote. We're an advanced medical technology company based here in Atlanta. And I also have the honor of serving as the chairman of the board of directors of the Center for Global Health Innovation, which, as Maria stated, is the parent organization of Georgia Bio. It's my pleasure today to welcome a distinguished panel to discuss collaboration in the development of therapeutics and vaccines in the COVID crisis. Our panelists represent many hundreds, if not thousands, who've been working their hearts out, both corporately and personally, to develop an effective COVID vaccine. Unquestionably, given all the challenges we have and continue to face in defeating COVID-19, this extraordinary and unprecedented collaborative effort on the part of the scientific community, pharmaceutical and biotechnology industry, and government is a cause for genuine pride and hopefully celebration. Yet safe and effective vaccines are necessary, but not sufficient to defeat COVID-19. Our ability to scale and deploy these vaccines through an effective and thoughtful vaccination strategy is our next great challenge. To that end, developing the tools and policies for effective deployment of these COVID-19 vaccines is the focus of 2 major projects underway at the Center for Global Health Innovation and its operating division, the Global Health Crisis Coordination Center. First, the tool. On Friday, the Global Health Crisis Coordination Center announced the development of an online priority-based use of allocation vaccines estimator, or PAVE tool, to aid state and county public health professionals achieve equitable allocation of limited vaccine supply across the US. This goes live this week. Second, on the policy front, the Center for Global Health Innovation has worked with Charles River Associates in Boston to create a policy framework to provide the economic justification for the equitable distribution of COVID vaccines. Kirsten Axelson from the Charles River Associates will present the findings of this framework during the Measuring the Economic and Community Impact of COVID-19 panel at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow here at the summit. And we look forward to the paper's official release and publication on Monday, November 9th. It is entitled Allocating COVID-19 Vaccines with Economic Considerations. With that, I'll turn this back to Maria, and I look forward to an outstanding panel presentation today. Maria?
Great, thank you, Russ. Very exciting news, and we will share the release with our community once it's live next week. Now I'd like to pivot to our keynote conversation. As mentioned earlier today, EY is the sponsor for this session, and we thank them for their support. I'm honored to welcome Donica Dilligard, an audit partner with EY, as our keynote moderator. Donica has over 21 years of combined public and private experience serving in a variety of high growth oriented companies at various stages of development, primarily in the life sciences sector. Donica, the entire global medical community has focused on finding treatments and vaccines to defeat the current global health crisis. I'm excited to hear what you and our esteemed panelists have to say today on this important work and the unprecedented collaboration taking place to combat COVID-19. Donica?
Thank you, Maria, and thank you, Georgia Bio, for the amazing work that you and your organization has done. And thank you for affording EY the opportunity to be part of this panel. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of EY, I want to personally welcome you to what is going to shape up to be an amazing and engaging conversation with regards to this particular topic. But before I turn it over to my esteemed panelists, as Maria mentioned, I'm excited to be part of this community. I have served this particular industry for over 15 years, spanning a gamut of all parts of the ecosystem, whether it's biotech, medical device, pharmaceutical, generic pharmaceuticals, contract manufacturers. I'm passionate about this particular space and everything that they do. I'm excited about the topic that we're going to be covering today. I'm going to turn it over to my esteemed panelists who are going to introduce themselves to you, and then we'll pivot back to some very important topics that we want to cover this afternoon. So Paul, can I turn it over to you?
Great, thank you, Danica. Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Danica. Thank you, Georgia Bio. It's a real privilege to be able to talk to you today. My name is Paul Burton. I am Chief Global Medical Affairs Officer at Janssen. We are the pharmaceutical company of J&J. And maybe I can just take a minute to give you a very high-level, quick thumbnail sketch of what we're doing at Johnson & Johnson about COVID-19. I think, as many of you know, we have a long-standing and unwavering commitment to addressing global public health issues and important questions. And I really think that's been exemplified by the way that we've been able to bring the people and the technology of Johnson & Johnson to bear on COVID-19. And we've really done that through, I think, a few key efforts. One is partnering with governments, with health authorities, with industry, small companies. I think many of the companies represented with Georgia Bio, small and large, we've interacted with. And of course, we have our underlying adenoviral vector technology, ADVAC26. So we've brought that to bear. We're in human trials. We started our phase 1 and 2 trials in the summer. That was built on non-human primate data that we published in Nature. We're now in phase 3. We're enrolling in that study called Ensemble here in the United States, throughout Latin America, other countries as well. So we've brought that again in partnership with organizations like BARDA, with regulators, with independent experts around the world to really bring the best possible clinical trial that we can design and conduct to bring a safe and effective vaccine. We did pause that a while ago, and perhaps we'll touch on that. Again, safety and the well-being of participants and our consumers that we serve is at the center of everything we do. And a necessary pause came about. We reviewed the data extensively, externally and internally, and that study is now ongoing. So we are humbled to be able to contribute to the global efforts around COVID, and privileged to be working with Georgia Bio today and being in this discussion. So thank you, Danica.
Alejandra?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Danica. Thanks, Bio, for having me today to be part of this amazing panel. So I don't want to repeat what Paul said, but I think we are all together in this journey against COVID-19. I was asked several times over the past 3-4 months about, are you competing with other companies trying to find a vaccine earlier and to earn more money? And definitely this is not the right answer. I think as never been before, we are working in a very collaborative environment. And I think the race that we are trying to win is against the virus and trying to go back to the new normal, as usually we repeat it several times in this new world after COVID-19. So I forgot to introduce myself, sorry. My name is Alejandro Cané. I am a pediatrician, pediatric infectious disease specialist by training. I joined Wyeth almost 20 years ago, and when Pfizer acquired Wyeth, they acquired me. And I am part of the vaccine family in Pfizer since the year 2009. So as you know, Pfizer is a proven, reliable multinational vaccine company supplying vaccines to over 165 countries. And today we are working in partnership with BioNTech, which is a biotech based in Germany, using an innovative platform, which is the mRNA technology, to develop a safe and effective COVID-19 vaccine. And we are working in a phase 3, as Paul mentioned, with J&J. We are working in the phase 3 clinical trial that currently is being conducted in 6 countries: US, Brazil, Argentina, South Africa, Germany, and Turkey. We have enrolled more than 43,000 subjects. Happy to say that more than 37,000 already received the 2 doses of our vaccine candidate, and we are just trying to collect the number of cases in order to demonstrate that the vaccine is efficacious, and collecting the safety data that is required by the FDA to submit the information to the FDA and to have the vaccine available as soon as possible to try to control the pandemic curve. So with that, I think I'm very happy to participate today and to answer any question that you could have. Thank you, Danica.
Last but not least, Clement.
Hi, I'm Clem Lewin, and I work for Sanofi Pasteur. I manage our relationship with BARDA, mainly focused on pandemic influenza, now COVID-19, and also do stakeholder engagement for our new vaccines. I got about 25 years in the vaccine industry. I'm a vaccines junkie. So a couple of things I'd kind of like to highlight. First of all, I agree with everything that both of my colleagues have said. I think Alejandro is exactly right. It's not a race. We're working to solve a public health problem, and we'll probably need more than one vaccine to do that. To do that. So I was very pleased to hear that, because that's our philosophy as well. And I also emphasize, just like Paul said, a couple of points, is it's stakeholder engagement, or this is really a public-private partnership. We are all working together, both our industrial partners, other partners doing the diagnostics, et cetera, but also should acknowledge our partners at BARDA, NIH, and FDA in the US and internationally. So I think, it's good to hear that you're hearing one voice on those important topics. A little bit of background on Sanofi. We're one of the largest vaccine manufacturers in the world. We're global. We have a broad range of pediatric and adult vaccines. We have 2 COVID vaccine candidates. The first is a recombinant protein vaccine that's based on our flu block technology. So it's based on a licensed influenza vaccine platform. And it is adjuvanted with AS03, which is GSK's adjuvant. So what you see here is, again, an unprecedented partnership between 2 very large vaccine companies to address a public health issue. And our second candidate is similar in technology to Pfizer's. It's an mRNA vaccine in partnership with Translate Bio, which is a smaller company. So again, you see this partnership that's evolved. And then beyond where we are is for the recombinant candidate, we are in phase 1/2 trials. We're expecting to move to phase 3 in December. And for the mRNA, we're still at the preclinical stage, but hope to be in the clinic by the end of the year. And I should have said thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this panel. One, it's in Atlanta, home of the CDC, so it's always, Georgia is a very important place for public health. And also, I think it's going to be a great discussion with some excellent colleagues and a moderator. So I'm looking forward to this a lot.
So thank you everyone for those introductions and some brief background. So I know you all briefly touched upon this as part of your opening remarks, but now let's take a deep dive into the discussion what's on top of everyone's mind. Safety, and efficacy. The safety and the efficacy of the COVID vaccines are vital to the successful deployment. Personally, I was very happy to see that all the top executives, well, the top 9 drug makers signed a letter committing to this being the #1 priority. How are your respective organizations prepared to overcome the barriers and the rhetoric around the trust and confidence around the safety and efficacy of the vaccines?
if I could, maybe, Danica, could I?
Sure.
So, first of all, I think you're absolutely right that there is obviously concern about the safety and efficacy of the vaccines given the speed at which they've been developed. I think it's very important to recognize that no corners are being cut. The process isn't being short-circuited, but rather things are being done in parallel that would normally be done sequentially, like scale up of manufacturing even prior to phase 3, and some of the non-clinical studies done in parallel to the phase 1-2 studies. But why we're able to do this is because both the companies and the government is willing to take risks. And when I say risks, it's not in the safety and efficacy of the vaccines, it's risking resources, because all of us are putting, and other companies are putting significant human capital into development of these vaccines. And the government for some companies is funding the development. So they're investing, or other companies are investing their own capital, but capital and human and financial capital is at risk, but not the safety and efficacy of the vaccine. So I think we have to be aware that the process isn't being short-circuited. The second thing I think that should give people confidence is that, as you've mentioned, all of the companies are committed to transparency, to sharing their results. And I don't think this is anything different than what we would do under normal circumstances, but you don't normally read about vaccines or clinical trials in the media at this level. So I think people, in the industry certainly know that we are always transparent with our results, but we do understand there's increased scrutiny and are working hard to be transparent. And then finally, we shouldn't forget the role of the federal review committees, the VRPAC, which was held time flies, like 10 days ago, where they're an independent committee that will review all of the vaccines and provided guidance to the FDA on what they're looking for. And then finally, in Atlanta, we have the ACIP, which met last week and has been meeting regularly since July to review the safety and efficacy of the data, vaccines, develop an ethical framework for allocation. So I think that we should have, as Americans and global citizens, that a high degree of confidence both in the safety and efficacy of the vaccines that come forward, and the fact that there will be a rigorous independent review process used before these vaccines are deployed.
Yes, if you allow me to build on Clement's comments, I think the safety and efficacy of any COVID-19 potential vaccine is the priority number one. We all know that every new vaccine is good for the public only if the public trusts that the vaccine is safe. And I think vaccine confidence could be like a nice word to say, but it means a lot of education and communication and transparency in the interactions with, not only with the healthcare practitioners or the authorities, but also with the communities. And I think we need to adequate our communication and our messages, not only to explain why the vaccine will be safe and efficacious, but at the same time, why the people that will receive the vaccine will be beneficial for that vaccination, right? I think that is also a critical piece that we need to take care of. And for that, and I can tell you, I'm sure Paul and Clement will agree with me, we are working so hard in an open and transparent manner with the FDA, with the ACIP, with Operation Warp Speed, with BARDA, with all the different stakeholders in the country, trying to provide them the most updated information that we are obtaining basically in a daily basis from the clinical trial, from the experiences that we are collecting. And I think this is a commitment that the industry as a whole, with the pledge that you mentioned in your words, Danica, we are all committed on that side. And I think the only way to really be clear with the people is repeating and repeating and repeating, and science and scientists are the ones guiding the process, and we are not cutting corners. I think Clement summarized it very well, the concept. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Danica, maybe I can just make two very quick comments. I agree 100% with Alejandro and Clem, and I think what hopefully everybody hears today from all of us is that, and it may sound cliched, but we're in competition against the vaccine. We're not in competition with each other, and it's really true. You've got all these huge pharmaceutical companies coming together with regulators to try and defeat this. I think the other thing, we're 3 big companies. There are other smaller companies on this, but think about the platforms we have. Our AdVac platform has been used in 120,000 people already in Ebola. Alejandro's platform has, Clem's platform has. So we're using technology and platforms that have been really studied carefully and that are known to be safe. So I think, me personally, I and the public, I think we can take confidence from that.
Mm-hmm. I think those are excellent perspectives from each of you. I think, time will tell as to how the public, perceives, but we need to stay persistent and consistent with the messaging. And the fact that you are all united around this one particular cause, I think it's going to definitely show in the way that this ultimately gets deployed. So pivoting a little bit, the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the severe degree of ongoing health disparities among minority populations in the US. These disparities in illness and death have amplified the need to address health and equity on a systematic level. I know, Russell, your opening remarks they hit home for me at a different level because of all the work that the organization is doing. But the business case for advancing health equity beyond our pandemic response has never been stronger. How has your organization specifically focused on addressing these inequities to improve the outcomes and achieve health equities for all?
Maybe Danica, I could start on this one, Danica, and then hand over. I think, there's a couple of things for us. Again, the companies you have represented here, I think we and J&J, we certainly are built on a legacy of what we refer to as purpose-driven actions. It's important. We go after hard diseases that other people can't take on, and we want to conquer them. So we have a real commitment to diversity and inclusion in those settings, and it's very clear that to be successful in vaccine development in COVID, that we have to continue that. We have to provide transparency and confidence for ethnic minorities in clinical trials and underrepresented groups that today just have to feel confident that they can come into the trials, and then that the results will be effective. So I think for us, we're looking in our phase 3 trial, and I know Clem and Alejandro want to comment on this, I think as well, high representation for Black, Hispanic, Latinx, American Indian, Alaskan Native participants in these trials. So we're going to every extent possible to build confidence in populations that have perhaps not had that confidence in the past, to ensure that we get enrollment in high numbers. And I think those two together will bring real equity and accessibility of the vaccines when they're produced, and that level of confidence. So at least for our part, that's really what we're doing.
Alejandro?
Yes, of course. So at Pfizer, as Paul mentioned, we are also very focused on the health disparities and our concern about the impact of COVID-19 on particular groups like community of Latins or Black African American people are important. So that's the reason why we implemented at the beginning of our clinical program how we can support the broader diversity in our COVID-19 clinical trial participation. So just to give you an idea, we have 39 states participating in the clinical trial only in the US, and we were working with local communities and NGOs trying to help us to communicate why the people living in those minority groups, just to call it in one way, will benefit participating in the trial, and not only in the individual base, but also for the community as a total. And that's the reason why, if I can share with you some numbers, out of the 44,000 subjects that we are targeting to be included in the study, we have included 30% of them coming from those minority groups. So which are, it's amazing compared with previous experiences in clinical trial participation. And coming from a Latin community, I'm Argentinian, so I am so happy to say that when you compare the Latin representation in the US clinical sites compared with the size that we have in the rest of the world. We have like 15% of the Latin community participating in the clinical trial, which at the end of the day is a good thing for them, but for the globe as a total, right? So we understand that conducting studies in diverse communities is an instrumental part to not only to provide information, but also to retain and to recruit underrepresented participants in the future. So I think the COVID-19 pandemic situation and the clinical trial that we are all conducting now will help us to change the way on the diversity representation for the future. And I think that is one of the learning that we can obtain from this crazy situation with COVID-19.
It's difficult to follow with two such excellent comprehensive answers. A couple of like three thoughts. First of all, agree that COVID has highlighted, because it impacts minority populations, the importance of the diversity of trials, particularly in this situation, to ensure that the vaccine is effective in those populations. I think paradoxically, Sanofi is in the fortunate position of being slightly behind or later in our phase 3 trial, starting our phase 3 trial than either J&J or Pfizer, and we'll be able to learn from their experiences as has been pointed out. We all collaborate and we collaborate with OWS. We'll be able to learn from the experience to hopefully ensure that we meet the same commitments to recruiting a diverse population. The second point, I think, is what Alejandro said, is I think that this has illustrated the importance of recruiting diverse populations in clinical trials and has renewed a focus on that. And hopefully the lessons learned here will be applied going forward. I'm pretty sure they will be. And then the third point is we shouldn't stop at diversity in clinical trials. What we want to eliminate is socio or racial disparities in uptake of the vaccine, both in terms of access, but also acceptance. And that's going to require some, as Alejandro mentioned, education of these communities working with these organizations. And I'm a glass half empty guy usually, but here I'm pretty glass half full, because I think the US in immunizations under the leadership of the CDC and public health at the state level, we've done a very good job of reducing and in some cases eliminating social and racial, socioeconomic and racial disparities. Sanofi particularly has been focusing on influenza, making certain that African American, Black and Latinx communities have access to the vaccine through a variety of programs and partnerships. And hopefully those lessons will be applied to COVID. But I think we not just need to think in terms of the clinical trials, but actually acceptance, access, and uptake, which will be our partners in the public sector.
Those are all amazing points to hear, and I'm very excited as to the level of commitment that each of your organizations and partnerships with not only the external community, but also everyone involved to promoting that as one of your priorities as well. So pivoting slightly with regards to the actual successful deployment of the vaccine, when I take a step back and think about your internal and external processes, regarding the manufacturing and the supply chain associated with the successful deployments, how have your organizations really address the issues or concerns with regards to meeting the need around the successful deployment in not only developed markets, but even more importantly, the underdeveloped markets where the populations are so significant and the success of the deployment of the vaccine is going to be very dependent upon that successful deployment. So can you give me some perspectives as to what you've done as an organization to address that supply, demand consideration?
Yeah, if you like, I can start. So I think the COVID-19 pandemic is an unprecedented situation. None of us were exposed to this kind of demand or challenge before. and that requires a completely different approach in terms of supply, right? So we can repeat the cassette saying, oh yes, Pfizer is a proven, reliable multinational vaccine company that we provide millions and millions of doses. And I know Clement and Paul could repeat exactly the same, which is true because we have a very long story supplying vaccines everywhere around the globe. But here we are in a completely different picture. We need to satisfy a demand that was never equal, right? So we are talking about 5 to 7 billion people that require to be vaccinated in a very short period of time. And that is something that we in Pfizer are aware about, and we are, just to give you an idea, again, our track record gives us confidence in our ability to quickly scale up manufacture and distribution in a large way, high quantities of high quality vaccine. However, the challenge are not only in terms of how you are easily scaling up the vaccine capacities in Europe or in the US, where we have plans to produce the vaccine, and we already started with the production, but also how you are working with the governments and with the countries in order to develop the distribution and the logistics, which are not simple. Each vaccine requires different capabilities, and we are working hard in collaboration. And again, collaboration is a word that we repeat several times, but I think it's true. We are collaborating with the governments in order to help them to develop the local infrastructure that support the vaccine implementation. As I mentioned at the beginning, it does not any sense to develop a vaccine in less than 1 year if at the end of the day the vaccine remains in the fridge in J&J, Sanofi, or Pfizer, right? So we need to distribute and to implement the vaccination. So our goal is to have around 100 million doses ready to be distributed by the end of 2020 at the global level, and around 1.3 billion doses alone 2021. And for that, we are using the local network of manufacturers we have in the US and in Europe. And again, after the idea is after the vaccine is authorized or approved by the FDA or any other regulatory authority, we are able to distribute the vaccine. But in parallel, I think, which is important, and I really want to repeat the situation, we have developed a very, very detailed logistical plan and tools to support an effective vaccine transport, storage, and continuous temperature monitor. You know that the mRNA technology requires frozen capacities to be distributed. Is different compared with the J&J and the project that Clement mentioned at the beginning. But I think the challenges could be overcome if we are working in a transparent manner and collaborating with the governments. And again, when I say governments, I'm not saying US. I'm talking about the different NGOs and authorities like WHO or COVAX, because at the end of the day, we have to change the pandemic course, and for that we need to be open, transparent, collaborative, and as we never been before, completely sharing the information and to learn from other mistakes and to take advantage of other mistakes to be efficient as possible. So I think what Clement mentioned about the lucky to be a little bit behind in this race against the virus, maybe it's not good from the typical commercial position, but I think from the scientific point of view, makes completely sense to be the ones collaborating with others that perhaps are ahead of us in terms of the vaccine development perspective, but at the end of the day with the same goal, which is to change the pandemic situation in the globe.
Yeah, I completely agree. Again, I think companies like ours, we're fortunate. We have amazing cold chain capability. We can leverage that. We have huge infrastructure across 150 countries around the world, so we can do deals quickly to manufacture and scale up, exactly as Alejandro said. I think probably what we're all seeing as well, not only are we reaching out and really collaborating, but the receptivity of that is reciprocated. So governments, NGOs, academic societies around the world, also in an unprecedented way are looking to partner with companies like Johnson & Johnson and with the others on the call. And that, I think as well, the fact that we've been able to get a sense of volume requirements now early, to be able to plan for that. Again, it might have been Russ who said at the start, you know, or even Clem, that we're doing so much in parallel, not in sequence. We have a sense of the kind of volumes that will be required. Just lets us prepare. You know, it's not like we produce the vaccine and then suddenly this will all have to kick into action. So I think the two-way street, the receptivity, is really enabling us to do this at speed. And you know, we're working together again. I just want to emphasize, in September, we were able to sign Johnson & Johnson along with 15 other life science companies and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, a communique that essentially underpinned our unwavering commitment to equitable global access. So when you bring that kind of commitment to bear on a situation like this, you know, I think it puts us in a great situation.
So it's, you know, it's tough to, again, follow two speakers who've covered a lot of ground and highlighted, I think, the public spiritedness of this effort. I think a couple of, you know, sort of additional comments. Like, I tend to look at it as two stages, and one is, like Alejandro and Paul have alluded to, the companies of our size bring a tremendous industrial footprint for manufacturing, and also experience in technology transfers to CMOs, because this is unprecedented in the amount of volume that we need. And so the ability to distribute these vaccines is critical from the manufacturing side to just get them there. And our company distributes 1 billion doses a year. So we think we can do it. We distribute about 80 million doses of influenza or this year, and usually above 70 in the last 5 years in the US. So we think we have that ability. That said, a lot for us will, as Paul has alluded and Alejandro, is going to be a partnership. So in the US, we're going to be partnering, working closely with the CDC to ensure equity of distribution. Globally, there are other organizations and mechanisms, and we all are part of them, and we'll all work together to distribute this, because I think the common vision that industry shares is we want everybody who needs access to the vaccine to get it. We recognize that it's not enough to show the vaccine safe and effective. It's not enough to produce it, but we have to be able to get it into people's arms. And we will work with our partners to ensure we do that, like we do with all of the other vaccines globally, through you know, Gavi and others have shown a tremendous ability to reduce the burden of disease. And I think here it's going to demonstrate that it can help us with this public health emergency. I think we won't get back to normal without a vaccine, and we'll all work together to make it a global distribution, leveraging whatever we can in partnership.
So I'm actually going to stick with you and just kind of further expanding on that actual successful deployment of the actual vaccine. In light of the pandemic, patients have, you know, pivoted with regards to the way that they receive healthcare currently, whether it's through virtual environments, you know, or hesitations with regards to, you know, visiting physicians or outpatient facilities. How is your company going to address that specific concern with regards to individuals' lack of, you know, openness with regards to, you know, the traditional methods of what we would have typically deployed these vaccines? So I know it's a little bit very, you know, counterintuitive. You would think that once it's there, people will just want to do it. But I can tell you personally, I can see the concerns with regards to receiving the vaccine.
You know, I think, you know, the first thing is, as we've discussed, is ensuring public confidence, so people want to get the vaccine. Because if they don't want to get the vaccine, they're not going to. It's self-defeating. The second area that I think you're referring to is access to the vaccine, and given COVID, people may not go to providers' offices, or it may be more difficult to do public immunizations. I think, and I'll limit my comments to the U.S. I think the U.S., we're in a fortunate position because, particularly in adult immunizations, we've recognized the need for alternative sites of immunization. So these days, you can get the immunization at retail pharmacies. You can get immunizations even at the supermarket. So I think and at work. So I think there are many, what we've done, we no longer require people to go to get them at their healthcare provider, their primary care provider. That said, I think we're going to have to be even more creative for this pandemic. One of the things is I think we can learn from the experience of this year's flu season, because it's been very important to get immunized against influenza, because we want to prevent influenza and reduce the burden on the healthcare system, because we don't yet have a COVID vaccine. And we've seen some non-traditional sites such as drive-throughs working creatively to get people access, and that seems to have been successful given the number of people that have been immunized. So I think we can learn from that, and I think we're going to see a lot of thought with our public sector partners are thinking about this. For example, nursing homes or healthcare aides vaccinating high-risk elderly in their own homes. So I think we're going to see a lot of thought as to how we can deliver those vaccines. Companies will probably play a role in supporting them, but I think a lot of the leadership will come from the public sector that develops the programs and the recommendations, but we will certainly be supporting them and sharing whatever experience we've had with some of the innovative programs that we've worked on.
Thank you. Alejandro?
Yes, I was thinking on Clement's comment. I guess we can divide the situation in two things. One is the vaccines that are currently available, because we learned that during particularly the first 3 months during the pandemic, we've seen a dramatic reduction in all the vaccines that are part of the current recommendation from the ACIP in the US. And I think globally it was also the same situation, like 50% reduction in all the pediatric vaccination. And again, if you allow me, just taking about pneumonia vaccine in adults, like 85% reduction when you compare May in 2020 versus May in 2019, which is dramatic, right? And I think the way to work in a collaboration that we are currently doing with the CDC, with the ACIP, and with the local organizations, trying to educate the people about the need to complete and to catch up on the current schedule is so important. This is for me critical. As a pediatrician, I should say, I don't want to have my patients suffering measles when you have a vaccine 90% effective to prevent the disease, right? And that is the unexpected potential consequence of COVID-19 too. It's not only the disease itself, but all the consequences on the healthcare system as a whole. And in terms of the COVID-19 vaccine situation, I think we are working every day with the states and with local partners, patient advocates, providers, and trying to explain them, answer questions, and providing the science behind the vaccines, and trying to understand what our plans are in terms of distribution and in order to facilitate the penetration when the vaccine would be available, right? And again, from the healthcare practitioner side, you need to educate the people about the shipping, the storage, the administration, and it's not simple. It takes time, and we have the vaccine available in the next 2 months, hopefully. And for that, we need to start yesterday with that training, and we are doing that. And I think Clement mentioned a very important player, which are the pharmacists. And it's important to highlight that situation, because I guess it was a couple of weeks ago when the federal government issued an order where ensured that once COVID-19 vaccine will be available and approved, the pharmacists can administer them to the public right away, which are very important and instrumental players in the vaccination. I think I don't want to repeat what Clement said, but we need to reinforce the system that we already have in place, and at the same time to be innovative in the way that we are educating the people in advance to prepare them for once the vaccine will be available.
Thank you for those comments. So, in closing, last but not least, can you share some lessons learned from the pandemic so far? And have you given any thought to how the pandemic preparedness might be improved based upon those lessons that you've learned over the last year? Paul? I think you're on mute.
Okay, I think I'm okay. Thanks. Okay, I think for me, I think investment in technology and investment in disease area strongholds and strength has been key. For many of the people on the call, you're working in labs, you're working in academic institutions, you're putting companies together. What you're doing is an amazing thing. It's going to create the future for us. And I think that's been a huge takeaway. You have to invest in technology, platforms like our AdVac technology or the other ones that you've heard about today. The speed has been important. Absolute commitment to safety, but to provide an efficacious vaccine is key. But coming together, being prepared to work in parallel. I think that phrase about going fast, going alone, if you want to go far, go together. I think the lowest common denominator is we want to go fast and far. So that's going together. That's been critical. The collaboration has been remarkable. And at the end of the day, I think as well, the talent in all our organizations. I'm humbled day in, day out, the way people at J&J are working around the clock. It's been an amazing thing. So those are my big takeaways.
I think we're sort of still in the middle of it. So it's, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. But I think I divide into two things. I hope for vaccine development, what we have learned is maybe how to do it faster. I don't think we're going to normally, under normal circumstances, we can envision vaccines being developed in 18 months, but I think hopefully we can reduce the cycle time and therefore have more prevent disease sooner and improve our record. So I think that's one thing I hope that comes out of this. In terms of how we respond to public health emergencies, primarily pandemic influenza and emerging infectious diseases, I hope that this has illustrated the importance of being prepared, that the investments made by governments in pandemic and preparedness and emerging infectious disease have paid off. And as Paul said, that the importance of supporting small companies that are working in those areas and building these technologies, because when we need them fast. The second area that I think big lesson, so I hope we get the funding is put in and people realize this is, just like an aircraft carrier missile, you really don't want to use it, but you need it to be available when you do. The second thing is, I think that we've learned from the Operation Warp Speed approach, but moving back, I would say we've learned the value of BARDA, of having a government agency with the subject matter experts, not just to provide funding, but to provide support and review proposals and set up a strategy that can then be transitioned to this OWS leadership. I think we should recognize that BARDA did an excellent job of moving things forward and into the framework. So I hope that we continue to fund and support BARDA. I think the US is unique in having a BARDA, and hopefully other parts of the world will learn from that experience and maybe create their own equivalent. And then the final thing I think that we've really learned is the importance of partnerships, both public and public-private partnerships and private sector partnerships. And from the Sanofi side, or at least my side, having had the relationship with BARDA before we start knowing how they operate was certainly very, very helpful. So I think these are long-term strategic relationships for both small and large companies to build those relationships so that when the pandemic emerges, we're used to working together, they're familiar with your technologies and capabilities, as well as you're familiar with what they can do and how they operate. So those would be my key takeaways so far.
Excellent.
I am forcing to repeat what Clement said, and I am not repeating him. But no, honestly, I think, and I was thinking on his words, I think one of the most important public health achievement that we had is the elimination of reduction in many previously deadly diseases, and that happened because of vaccines, right? And we have now the opportunity to sit down once the pandemic pass away, and we will be able to take advantage of all the learnings that we obtained during this month. I think Paul and Clement mentioned the idea to invest on prevention, to collaborate and to create partnership and to keep the partnership, public and private. And I think the other piece that it was already mentioned before is the collaboration and the communication and the transparent collaboration and communication, not only among the manufacturers, but also with the authorities, the ones that are analyzing the data, but also the ones that are recommending the data based on what we are providing them. And that will allow us to reduce from 10 years to 18 months the vaccine development timelines, but at the same time, put us in a position where we have the responsibility to change sometimes the perception that the people in the field has regarding the companies, right? And I think the responsibility that we have today will change the way that we will work with the people in the future. And I think we all learn about that. And I think this is a great opportunity to open a new era in the way that we are working in the vaccines arena in a very open and transparent manner. So again, I think the collaboration, transparency, and investment are the key three messaging from my side.
All excellent points. And I know, we kind of touched upon a lot of different things. Is there any final thoughts or considerations that you want to share with the participants that we haven't covered as part of this dialogue? I know we didn't necessarily, prepare this, but I mean, if there's anything else that you would like to share with the audience with regards to this particular topic.
Danica, it's Paul. I think, look, just for me, these types of forums are fantastic, okay, because we can talk about transparency and posting results and putting protocols out there, and we all do that. But getting an opportunity like this just to talk openly about what we're doing, the more we discuss it, the more organizations represented on the call and the public get to hear what's going on, it's only better for everybody. As I said earlier, we're all in this together, and working together, we'll get there. But a setting like this is a great opportunity to discuss it.
I feel the same way, and you guys did an excellent job. Alejandro and Clement, any final thoughts on anything that we haven't covered?
Maybe again, I can say what sometimes I'm feeling. You are overwhelming with a lot of work, with meetings from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. all day long, all the week. So we lost the sense of the time. So we don't know if we are leaving Monday, Sunday, or when. But I think at the end of the day, those efforts will redundant on the good thing would be the vaccine availability in the very near future. And I think there is a statement that Pfizer CEO is repeating all the time, that science will win. And I think that is true. So it's not competition. We will have more than one vaccine available in the near future, and that is because the science will win. And I think that is like a good summary of all the discussion that we have had today.
The only thing I didn't touch on is, first of all, I agree with Paul that these kind of forums are great to exchange ideas and to enhance transparency. The other thing that we didn't really touch on is we're, each of us is representing thousands of people in the company that are working on this project, and working 24 for the last since March or earlier than that, have been working crazy hours in their dedication. But also, we haven't really touched on the dedication of our public health partners, CDC, CBER, CEPI, all WHO. All of these people have been working tremendous hours to help achieve these goals. Are the people conducting the clinical trials? It really is inspiring to see how hard people are working and how they've come together to work with one goal, which is to control this public health emergency. And as Alejandra said, it's not a competition. It really is maybe a relay or something. I can't think of the right analogy, but we're all working together. And that's something that really, you know, I hope that comes through in this discussion.
All excellent points. And, you know, some of the key takeaways that I've got from this conversation is, you know, the importance of the trust and confidence in our, you know, in our economies, in our, you know, in the public, you know, equitable distribution with regards to the vaccine, you know, managing the supply chain, and just, you know, all the efforts that have been gone around innovation to be able to come together with regards to, you know, the successful deployment of this vaccine. From an EY perspective, I have been extremely honored to be part of this discussion with you. I think all of your insights have been tremendous. I also agree with all of the sentiments and the comments that were shared today with regards to having more ability to share this information to kind of, you know, combat some of the other rhetorics that are out there with regards to the science behind, you know, the successful deployment of this vaccine. I think what you guys are doing and, you know, the ability to share it has been absolutely tremendous. So I'm going to just close it out and say thank you to each and every last one of you. Alejandro, I'm hoping that the skies will open up. I can make it back to Mendoza so I can get me some beautiful Argentinian wine, which I know and love, and miss my passionate Argentinian friends. So I'm praying that that will come soon. And with that, thank you all. I just, you know, I couldn't have asked for it to go any better.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good